pristine marble halls of the National War Memorial echoed with hushed whispers as dawn's first light filtered through the stained glass windows, casting ethereal shadows on the solemn figure standing guard. For Private Sarah Mitchell, her post at the tomb of the unknown soldier was more than just a ceremonial duty. It was a sacred trust. But on this crisp autumn morning, as tourists gathered with their phones raised high, no one could have predicted how one woman's brazen challenge would unravel a security operation years in the making, or the shocking consequences that would follow. The October air hung crisp and cool over the memorial grounds, carrying the sweet scent of fallen leaves and the distant murmur of early morning traffic. Private Mitchell stood motionless at her post, her ceremonial rifle held precisely at shoulder arms, her eyes fixed straight ahead beneath the polished brim of her dress cap. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Every crease in her midnight blue uniform was razor sharp, every brass button gleaming like a star against the dark fabric. Her posture was perfect, the result of countless hours of training and discipline that had earned her the honor of guarding this sacred space. The memorial itself was a masterpiece of architecture, its towering columns and intricate stonework telling stories of sacrifice and valor. The morning light played across the faces of stone angels and warriors, their expressions forever frozen in silent vigil. The tomb of the unknown soldier lay at the heart of it all, its white marble surface gleaming like fresh snow in the early light. To most visitors, it was a powerful symbol. To Private Mitchell, it was something far more. Among the growing crowd of morning visitors, Melissa Blackwood adjusted her designer sunglasses and smoothed down her expensive blazer, a confident smirk playing at the corners of her red-painted lips. Her latest TikTok video had just hit 2 million views, and she was hungry for more. Known to her followers as the protocol breaker, Melissa had built her social media empire on pushing boundaries and challenging what she called outdated traditions. Her signature move? Confronting authority figures and proving they were, in her words, just people playing dress-up. "All right, my rebellious army," she purred into her phone's camera, her manicured nails tapping against the expensive case. "Today we're going to shake things up at this so-called sacred memorial. These guards think they're so special with their little routines and rules. But guess what? Rules are meant to be broken, and I'm just the girl to do it. Time to add another viral moment to my collection." The comment section immediately lit up with a mix of excitement and concern. "OMG, yes, queen. Show them who's boss. Careful, girl, those guards don't play around. This is going to be epic. You're my hero. Break all the rules. Looking fierce in that blazer. Slay." Melissa's Christian Louboutin heels clicked against the marble floor as she approached the viewing area, her phone held high to capture every moment. Her designer outfit, carefully chosen for maximum impact on camera, cost more than most people's monthly salary. Other visitors gave her strange looks as she narrated her approach, but she didn't care. She was used to being the center of attention. In fact, she craved it. "Look at her," Melissa whispered theatrically to her phone, zooming in on Private Mitchell's stoic face. Standing there like a statue, probably thinking she's so important. But what is she really guarding? It's just a symbolic tomb, people. Time to bring some reality to this little charade. My followers deserve a show, and honey, I always deliver. What Melissa didn't notice, what none of the tourists noticed, were the subtle signals being exchanged between the memorial's security team. In their state-of-the-art command center 3 levels below ground, monitors tracked multiple threats, and Private Mitchell's ceremonial post was just one part of a complex security web protecting something far more vital than Melissa could imagine. The memorial's public face was just that, a face. Behind its solemn exterior lay secrets that, if exposed, could shake the nation to its core. "Target approaching Section 4, a security officer murmured into his radio, watching Melissa's approach on the screens. "Maintain position. Continue monitoring primary situation. Be advised, subject is live streaming." His fingers flew across the keyboard, running facial recognition and background checks. On adjacent screens, thermal imaging showed 3 other figures of interest moving through the memorial's restricted areas. Private Mitchell heard the update through her concealed earpiece but maintained her pose, her training allowing her to process the information while appearing completely immobile. Behind her practiced stillness, her mind was sharp, aware of not only Melissa's approaching figure, but also the 3 suspicious individuals who had been circling the memorial's restricted areas for the past hour. Their pattern of movement suggested military training. This was no tourist group. Melissa, oblivious to the layers of security around her, prepared for her first challenge. Her followers had come to expect increasingly bold stunts, and she couldn't disappoint them now. Her social media empire was built on pushing boundaries, and each video needed to be more dramatic than the last. She had already planned her sequence. First, some mockery, then escalating provocations, and finally, her signature move, physical contact that would force a reaction. It had never failed to get her viral attention before. "Okay, everyone," she whispered to her live audience, now numbering in the thousands. "Watch and learn how to deal with outdated authority. These guards think they're untouchable, but I'm about to prove them wrong. Let's see how long Little Miss Perfect can keep up her act. Trust me, they all break eventually. It's just a matter of finding the right buttons to push." As Melissa stepped closer to the restricted area, Private Mitchell's trained eyes caught a subtle movement in her peripheral vision. One of the suspicious individuals had just removed something from their jacket. The morning sun continued to paint the memorial in soft light, but the air had grown heavy with tension. A confrontation was coming, but not the one Melissa had planned. The real drama about to unfold would be far more serious than any social media stunt. The stage was set for a morning that would change both women's lives forever, though not in the way either of them expected. Private Mitchell's grip on her rifle tightened imperceptibly as she monitored both threats, the obvious one strutting toward her with a phone, and the deadly serious one lurking in the shadows. The next few minutes would test everything she had trained for, and the consequences would ripple far beyond the memorial's marble walls. Melissa positioned herself strategically in front of Private Mitchell, making sure her followers had the perfect view of both her and the stoic guard. The memorial's marble columns provided an impressive backdrop, and the morning light caught her highlighted hair just right. She had been doing this long enough to know exactly how to frame a viral moment. "Watch this, everyone," she stage whispered to her phone, her perfectly manicured nails adjusting the camera angle. "Time to show Little Miss Soldier here that her act isn't fooling anyone." The live stream's viewer count had jumped to 15,000, and the comments were rolling in faster than ever. Melissa felt the familiar rush of adrenaline that came with performing for her audience. "Yoo-hoo!" she called out, waving her free hand dramatically in front of Private Mitchell's face. "Earth to Soldier Girl. Don't you get tired of playing pretend all day?" Her voice echoed through the sacred space, causing several nearby visitors to look up from their quiet contemplation with disapproving frowns. Private Mitchell remained motionless, but her trained senses were processing everything. Through her earpiece, she could hear the security team tracking the suspicious figures. Subject 3 moving towards the restricted wing. Subject 1 and 2 maintaining position near the southeastern entrance. Her peripheral vision caught one of the figures slipping something metallic into their pocket, possibly a signal jammer, or worse. Melissa, encouraged by her growing viewer count, decided to amp up her performance. "Oh my God, you guys," she giggled into her phone. "I think she's actually frozen. Should we check if she's still breathing?" She leaned in closer, her expensive perfume wafting through the solemn air of the memorial. Maybe she's one of those animatronics, you know? Like at Disney World? The comment section exploded. "Go girl! Make her crack. This is disrespectful. She's so brave. I could never. Security's gonna drag her out LMAO. Best content ever." In the command center below, Security Chief Robert Torres watched the monitors with growing concern. "Keep eyes on both situations," he ordered, his voice tense. "The girl's causing a distraction, but don't let it pull resources from the primary threat." On his main screen, thermal imaging showed the 3 suspicious figures had taken up strategic positions around the memorial's most sensitive areas. Melissa, completely unaware of the real drama unfolding around her, launched into her next routine. She pulled out a small compact mirror and pretended to check her makeup, while standing uncomfortably close to Private Mitchell. "You know," she said loudly, "preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Your hat's a little crooked. Want to borrow my mirror? Oh wait, you can't move, can you? Must be so hard being this uptight all day." A small group of school children on a field trip had gathered nearby, their teacher trying unsuccessfully to hurry them along. The kids watched wide-eyed as Melissa continued her performance, some giggling nervously, others looking uncomfortable. "See, kids?" Melissa called out to them, playing to her expanded audience. "This is what happens when you take rules too seriously. You turn into a statue." A few children laughed, but their teacher shot Melissa a withering look and quickly ushered them away. Through her earpiece, Private Mitchell heard more updates. Subject 2 approaching Checkpoint Charlie, possible device detected. Her training kicked into high gear. Checkpoint Charlie was near the memorial's most sensitive area, a section the public didn't even know existed. Yet her face remained impassive, her posture perfect. Melissa interpreted the guard's continued silence as weakness. "Okay, followers, time to kick things up a notch." She reached into her designer bag and pulled out a small Bluetooth speaker. "Since our friend here is too professional to talk to us, maybe she'd like to dance instead." In the command center, Chief Torres sat up straighter. "Get me eyes on that device," he ordered, not taking any chances. Within seconds, facial recognition had identified Melissa Blackwood, and her social media history flashed across a secondary screen. "Just a speaker," an analyst confirmed. "But sir, the other situations—" "I know," Torres cut him off. "Keep tracking both. If she escalates beyond harassment, we'll remove her. For now, she's actually providing good cover for our primary operation." The first notes of "Can't Stop the Feeling" blasted through the memorial's sacred silence. Several visitors jumped, and an elderly veteran visiting the tomb shot Melissa a look of pure disgust. But she was too focused on her performance to notice. "Come on, soldier girl!" Melissa danced in front of Private Mitchell, her expensive heels clicking against the marble floor. "Even the Queen's guards crack eventually. What's your excuse?" She twirled dramatically, making sure to capture every moment for her still-growing audience. Private Mitchell's face remained stone still, but her mind was racing. The suspicious figures were clearly coordinating something big. Their movement patterns matched known terrorist tactics she'd studied in training. Through her earpiece, she heard more chatter. Subjects converging on Point Delta, possible package transfer in progress. Melissa, mistaking the guard's heightened alertness for annoyance, pressed her advantage. "Look, everyone," she announced to her phone. "I think I saw her eye twitch. We're getting somewhere." She moved even closer, her phone just inches from Private Mitchell's face. "What do you say, honey? Ready to admit this whole thing is just for show?" The tension in the memorial had reached a new level. Regular visitors were giving Melissa a wide berth, some filming her behavior on their own phones, others shaking their heads in disapproval. But beneath this obvious drama, a far more dangerous situation was unfolding. The three suspicious figures had begun moving with newfound purpose, and through her earpiece, Private Mitchell heard the words she'd been dreading. "Package armed. 2 minutes to position." The morning sun continued to stream through the memorial's stained glass windows, casting colored shadows across the marble floor. But now those shadows concealed more than just the usual solemn beauty of the space. They hid a convergence of threats that would soon transform this peaceful morning into something none of them could have anticipated. The music from Melissa's speaker echoed off the memorial's walls, clashing jarringly with the sanctity of the space. Her live stream had now reached 20,000 viewers, and the rush of attention was intoxicating. Encouraged by her followers' reactions, she decided it was time to push even further. "All right, my beautiful rebels," she announced, running her fingers through her expertly styled hair. "Since our friend here isn't responding to music, let's try something else. You know what they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words." She pulled out a small selfie stick from her designer bag, extending it with practiced ease. In the command center, Chief Torres watched the situation unfold on multiple screens. Team Alpha, maintain position near the southeast corner. Team Bravo, prepare for intercept on my mark. His eyes darted between monitors, one showing Melissa's increasingly aggressive performance, others tracking the three suspicious figures who had now split up and were approaching different access points to the memorial's restricted areas. "Sir," one of his analysts called out. "Facial recognition just got a hit on Subject 2, known associate of the Damascus Group." Torres's jaw tightened. The Damascus Group was notorious for targeting historical sites, not for destruction, but for what they could steal, particularly sites with hidden military significance. Meanwhile, Melissa had positioned herself next to Private Mitchell, selfie stick extended. "Smile for the camera, honey," she chirped, invading the guard's personal space. "Oh wait, you can't smile, can you? Must be in your little rule book somewhere. No expressing human emotions allowed." She struck an exaggerated pose, making sure to capture both herself and the stoic guard in frame. The comment section continued to buzz. "This is getting uncomfortable. LMAO, she's about to break. Security needs to step in. Don't stop now. This is gold. Melissa, you're my hero. Break her." Private Mitchell remained motionless, but her training allowed her to process multiple threats simultaneously. Through her earpiece, she heard rapid updates from the security team. Subject 1 accessing maintenance door. Subject 2 moving towards primary target. Subject 3 has deployed unknown device near emergency exits. Melissa, interpreting the guard's continued stillness as weakness, decided to escalate further. She pulled out a small makeup bag and began pretending to touch up Private Mitchell's uniform. "You know," she said loudly, playing to her audience, "a little blush would really help with that whole dead inside look you've got going. Maybe some mascara too? I mean, if you're going to stand here all day, you might as well look pretty." Several visitors had stopped to watch the scene unfold, their expressions ranging from amusement to outrage. An elderly man wearing a Vietnam veteran's cap stepped forward, his face red with anger. "Young lady," he began, "this is a sacred—" "Oh my God, everyone!" Melissa cut him off, turning her phone to capture his reaction. "Look, we've got a volunteer defender. Sir, quick question. Do they pay these guards to be this boring, or is it just natural talent?" The veteran's face darkened further, but before he could respond, a subtle movement caught his trained eye. Years of combat experience had taught him to notice things others missed, and something about the way three individuals were moving through the memorial set off warning bells in his mind. In the command center, Torres watched as the situation grew more complex. "Subject 1 has breached first security layer," an analyst reported. "Subject 2 approaching vault access point. Subject 3, sir, they're jamming our secondary communications." Melissa, completely oblivious to the real drama unfolding around her, reached into her bag again. "Time for the grand finale, everyone," she announced to her live stream. "I've got a little surprise that's guaranteed to get a reaction." She pulled out a small paper bag, and the smirk on her face grew wider. Through her earpiece, Private Mitchell heard the tension in Torres's voice. "All units prepare for immediate response. Primary targets are converging on objective. Stand by for—" Suddenly, the transmission crackled with interference. The jamming had reached the main security channels. "You know what this is?" Melissa asked her audience, holding up the paper bag. "Confetti, because every good performance needs a finale, right?" She began to reach for the guard's perfectly pressed uniform. "Let's add some sparkle to all this seriousness." Private Mitchell's peripheral vision caught movement from all three suspicious figures simultaneously. Subject 1 had positioned themselves near the restricted access door. Subject 2 was reaching into their jacket, and Subject 3 had pulled out what appeared to be a remote detonator. The morning sun still streamed through the stained glass windows, but now it illuminated a scene of mounting tension. Melissa, drunk on attention and the thrill of pushing boundaries, remained focused entirely on her performance, unaware that she was about to become entangled in something far more serious than a social media stunt. "Get ready, everyone," she announced to her phone, her hand with the confetti moving closer to Private Mitchell. "This is going to be epic. Time to show everyone that these guards are just—" Somewhere in the memorial, a door clicked shut. A red light blinked on a hidden device. And in the command center, all the security monitors suddenly went dark. The security monitors in the command center flickered back to life after 3 seconds of darkness, an eternity in a potential crisis situation. Chief Torres's voice crackled through the backup communication system. All units, switch to emergency frequency Delta. Prepare for immediate response. The thermal imaging screens showed all 3 suspicious figures converging on their positions, their movements precise and coordinated. Meanwhile, Melissa stood before Private Mitchell, paper bag of confetti raised triumphantly above her head. "Final warning, soldier girl," she announced, her voice echoing through the memorial's marble halls. "Either you acknowledge me, or this perfect little uniform of yours gets a makeover." Her live stream had now reached 30,000 viewers, all eagerly anticipating what they thought would be the climax of her performance. The Vietnam veteran who had tried to intervene earlier noticed something that made his combat-trained instincts scream. The 3 individuals he'd been watching had all reached into their jackets simultaneously. His eyes darted to Private Mitchell, recognizing in her stance something civilians would miss: the subtle tension of a soldier preparing for action. "Time's up," Melissa sang out, her manicured fingers gripping the paper bag. "Let's add some sparkle to all this." Private Mitchell moved. It wasn't a dramatic motion, just a single step forward, her ceremonial rifle shifting slightly in her grip. But the suddenness of it after such prolonged stillness made Melissa stumble backward, nearly dropping her phone. Her confident smirk faltered for the first time that morning. "Oh my God, you guys." She recovered quickly, trying to play it off for her audience. "Look who finally decided to—" "Ma'am?" Private Mitchell's voice was low but carried an authority that cut through Melissa's performance like a knife. "Step back immediately." The comment section exploded. She spoke. "Something's wrong. This isn't part of the show. Run, girl, she looks serious. Finally getting interesting." Melissa's face flushed with excitement. "Well, well, the statue speaks. Come on, everyone, let's see what else we can get her to." A sharp crash echoed from somewhere deeper in the memorial, followed by the sound of running footsteps. Through her earpiece, Private Mitchell heard the situation unraveling. "Subject 1 has breached the vault perimeter. Subject 2 armed. Subject 3 maintaining position at emergency exit." The veteran, recognizing the signs of an operation going hot, began quietly ushering nearby civilians away from the area. His movements were subtle but purposeful, years of experience telling him exactly what was about to unfold. Melissa, still oblivious to the real danger, saw only an opportunity for more content. "Ooh, what's going on back there?" she asked theatrically, turning her phone toward the sound. "More guards coming to join our little party?" Private Mitchell's voice took on an edge that would have made anyone with sense step back immediately. "Final warning, ma'am, clear the area now." In the command center, Torres watched the situation spiral. "Team Alpha, move to intercept Subject 1, Team Bravo. Prepare for possible hostage situation in main hall. All units be advised, civilian interference is compromising response time." Melissa, drunk on attention and the thrill of finally getting a reaction, made her fatal mistake. "Or what, honey?" she taunted, stepping closer to Private Mitchell. "You'll break your precious protocol? Go ahead, show us what happens when—" The memorial's emergency lights suddenly flashed red. A low, pulsing alarm began to sound. Through the stained glass windows, shadows of armed figures could be seen moving into position outside. "What's happening?" Melissa's voice lost its theatrical edge, a note of genuine concern creeping in. Her live stream viewers watched as her confident expression began to crack. Private Mitchell's next movement was so fast it seemed impossible. In one fluid motion, she stepped forward, her ceremonial rifle shifting to a ready position that made it clear this was no parade weapon. Her voice cut through the growing chaos like steel. "Down! Everybody down!" The veteran was already moving, pulling surprised tourists behind marble columns. From deeper in the memorial came the sound of breaking glass and shouted commands. Melissa stood frozen, her phone trembling in her hand as she finally began to realize this wasn't about her anymore. "I said down!" Private Mitchell's command left no room for argument. When Melissa still didn't move, The guard's free hand shot out, grabbing her arm and pulling her behind cover just as the first explosion rocked the memorial's eastern wing. Melissa's phone clattered to the floor, its live stream still running as chaos erupted around them. Her followers watched in shock as their entertainment suddenly transformed into something much more serious. Through the fallen phone's camera, they could see armed figures moving through smoke, hear the sharp commands of security teams, and watch as their favorite social media star's face transformed from smug confidence to genuine fear. "Oh God," Melissa whispered, her designer blazer now covered in marble dust. "What's happening? This can't be." Private Mitchell's voice was cold as she secured her position, her training taking over completely. "This, ma'am, is what I was actually guarding against. While you were busy making a spectacle, real threats were moving into position. Now be quiet and stay down or you're going to get us both killed." The memorial's grand hall, which moments ago had echoed with Melissa's taunts and music, now rang with the sounds of a serious security operation in progress. And through it all, her phone continued to stream, its audience growing by thousands as they witnessed the moment a social media stunt transformed into something far more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. Smoke curled through the memorial's grand hall as the security alarm continued its rhythmic pulse. Melissa huddled behind a marble column, her designer clothes covered in dust, her perfectly styled hair now disheveled. Her phone lay several feet away, still broadcasting everything to an audience that had swelled to over 50,000 viewers, all watching in stunned silence as the scene unfolded. "Stay down and stay quiet," Private Mitchell ordered, her ceremonial rifle now held with the practiced ease of someone intimately familiar with its use. Through her earpiece, she received rapid updates from the command center. Subject 1 has breached the inner vault. Subject 2 engaged with Team Bravo near the eastern corridor. Subject 3 still maintaining position at emergency exit. Possible deadman switch detected. The Vietnam veteran had helped position other tourists behind cover, his combat experience evident in how he directed people to safer positions. "Like Saigon all over again," he muttered, his eyes alert as he assessed the situation. "Miss," he addressed Melissa in a harsh whisper, "I hope your little show was worth compromising a security operation." Melissa's hands trembled as she hugged her knees to her chest. I wasn't," she stammered, her usual confidence shattered. "This is real? This is actually real?" Another explosion echoed from deeper in the memorial, making her flinch violently. Through her fallen phone's camera, her followers watched their usually brazen idol crumble. The comment section had transformed completely. "Oh my God, this is terrifying. Someone call the police. This isn't funny anymore. I can't believe we encouraged her. Please be safe, Melissa." In the command center, Chief Torres coordinated his teams through the backup communication system. "Team Alpha, report status on vault breach." Static crackled before a response came through. "Subject 1 has accessed the lower level. They're heading for the artifact storage." Melissa's eyes widened at the word artifact. Storage? What artifact storage? This is just a memorial, right? She looked at Private Mitchell, whose focus remained razor-sharp as she monitored their surroundings. "Ma'am," the guard replied without taking her eyes off the smoke-filled corridor, "there's a lot about this place you don't know. And right now, your ignorance has complicated an operation months in the planning." The veteran nodded grimly. "This is why you don't mess with things you don't understand, young lady. That uniform isn't for show, and this memorial isn't just about remembrance." He pressed himself flat against the column as armed security personnel moved past their position, their weapons raised and ready. Through her earpiece, Private Mitchell heard Torres's voice. "Be advised, Subject 2 is attempting to access the Omega archives. Cannot allow breach of containment. Repeat, cannot allow breach of containment." Her jaw tightened. The Omega archives contained materials that could fundamentally alter public understanding of several historical events. If those documents got out... Melissa's phone suddenly chimed loudly, making everyone flinch. A message notification showed on the screen. "Mom, honey, are you okay?" "We're watching the news. There's something happening at the memorial." "The news?" Melissa whispered, her face paling further. This is on the news? The full impact of her actions was beginning to sink in. This wasn't just another viral video. This was a national security situation she had blundered into, live streaming classified operations to the world. Private Mitchell's hand shot out, grabbing the phone and silencing it. That's enough broadcasting, she said firmly, turning off the live stream despite Melissa's weak protest. You've already compromised enough operational security for one day. Suddenly, gunfire erupted from the eastern corridor. Security teams shouted commands, and the sound of breaking glass echoed through the hall. Private Mitchell's posture shifted subtly, and she positioned herself between the civilians and the direction of the threat. Oh God, Melissa muttered, tears starting to streak her perfectly applied makeup. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I thought... Her voice broke as another explosion rocked the building. The veteran's expression softened slightly. Nobody ever thinks that's the problem. Everyone sees a uniform and forgets there's a reason for it. The guard isn't just standing there, they're standing between us and things we'd rather not know about. Through her earpiece, Private Mitchell heard more updates. Subject 3 moving towards primary target. Jamming device active. Teams report difficulty maintaining communication. She knew what that meant. The situation was about to escalate even further. Melissa hugged herself tighter. Her earlier bravado completely evaporated. Are we going to die? She asked, her voice small and frightened. Private Mitchell's response was measured but firm. Not on my watch, but from now on, when I give you an order, you follow it immediately. No questions, no commentary, no social media. Is that clear? Before Melissa could respond, the lights in the memorial flickered ominously. Through the smoke-filled air, shadows moved with military precision. The veteran tensed, recognizing the pattern of movement. They're not just thieves, he whispered. These are trained operators. Private Mitchell nodded almost imperceptibly. That's why we've been tracking them for months. And now, thanks to this morning's distraction, they're closer to their goal than they've ever been. She glanced at Melissa, who seemed to shrink under her gaze. The next few minutes will determine whether we can contain this situation, or whether months of counterintelligence work gets compromised on your live stream. The memorial's grand hall, once a place of quiet reflection, had transformed into a battlefield. And Melissa, who had walked in thinking she was the star of her own show, now realized she had become an unwitting player in something far more serious, a reality she had never imagined existed behind the solemn facade of tradition and ceremony. The acrid smell of smoke mixed with the ancient stone dust now filling the memorial's air. Through the haze, emergency lights cast eerie red shadows that danced across the walls like restless spirits. Melissa watched in stunned silence as another team of armed security personnel moved past their position, their boots silent against the marble floor despite their rapid pace. Team Bravo, status report, Private Mitchell heard through her earpiece. Chief Torres's voice was tense. Subject 2 has accessed the lower archives. They've already copied several files from the Omega section. Containment has been compromised. The guard's expression remained stoic, but her grip on her rifle tightened imperceptibly. Melissa, who had spent the morning mocking that very stoicism, now saw something different in it. Not mindless discipline, but trained control in the face of crisis. What's in those archives? Melissa whispered, her voice barely audible. What is this place really? Her perfectly manicured nails were bitten raw, her expensive blazer torn at the shoulder from their earlier scramble for cover. The veteran, who had been keeping watch around their column, turned to her with a grim expression. Young lady, some questions are better left unasked. There are things in this country's history that... He cut himself off as another explosion rocked the building, this one closer than the others. Through her earpiece, Private Mitchell heard frantic updates. Subject 3 is moving. Repeat. Subject 3 is moving with an active device. All teams be advised. Asset protection is now priority alpha. Initiate protocol midnight. Melissa noticed the subtle change in Private Mitchell's posture at those words. Protocol midnight? She asked, her voice shaking. What does that mean? Before anyone could respond, the The memorial's main light suddenly blazed to full power, momentarily blinding everyone in the grand hall. When Melissa's vision cleared, she gasped. The seemingly solid wall behind the tomb of the unknown soldier had silently split open, revealing a massive steel vault door. "My God," the veteran breathed, his eyes wide. "I served 40 years and I never knew." Private Mitchell's voice cut through their awe. "Both of you, eyes front and stay down. What you're seeing is classified at the highest levels." She shifted her position, placing herself more firmly between them and the increasing sounds of combat from the eastern corridor. Melissa's phone, though no longer streaming, continued to buzz with notifications. News alerts flashed across the screen. Breaking armed conflict at National War Memorial. Possible terrorist attack in progress. Social media star inadvertently exposes covert operation. "They're talking about me," Melissa whispered, her face ashen as she read the headlines. "This is all because of me." The weight of her actions was finally hitting her full force. Her quest for viral fame had compromised something far bigger than she could have imagined. Through the smoke, they could see more security teams taking up positions around the exposed vault door. Whatever lay behind it was clearly the real target of this operation. Private Mitchell's earpiece crackled again. "Subject 1 has breached secondary containment. Subject 2 is uploading data to an unknown server. Subject 3... Static interrupted the transmission. The veteran tensed suddenly. "Movement," he whispered, pointing toward a shadow that seemed to be moving against the flow of smoke. His combat-trained eyes hadn't dulled with age. Private Mitchell had already noticed. "Command, possible hostile approaching position 4, she murmured into her comm. "Request immediate." The rest of her transmission was cut off by a burst of electronic interference. Melissa huddled closer to the column, her designer heels now discarded for better mobility. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why would anyone attack a memorial? What could be so important?" The veteran's response was quiet but intense. "Girl, you spent all morning thinking that guard was just playing dress-up. Did it ever occur to you that there might be a reason they put their best-trained personnel in plain sight, hidden in plain view? Oldest trick in the book." Through the newly revealed vault door, they could see flashes of light and hear the sounds of combat echoing up from below. Private Mitchell's earpiece came back to life. "Asset compromised. Repeat, asset compromised. Subject 1 has accessed the primary vault. Subject 2's upload is at 60%. Subject 3 is..." Another explosion cut off the transmission, this one close enough to shower them with debris. When the dust cleared, Melissa saw something that made her blood run cold. One of the armed intruders was standing at the end of their corridor, holding what looked like a professional military tablet. "Upload at 70%. The figure spoke into a tactical radio. "Once the data is secured, initiate final protocol. The world is about to learn some very interesting truths about American history." Private Mitchell moved with practiced efficiency, simultaneously pushing Melissa and the veteran further behind cover while bringing her rifle to bear. "Both of you, when I give the signal, move to the secondary position we discussed. Do not stop. Do not look back." "But," Melissa started to protest. "No arguments," Private Mitchell cut her off. "You've done enough damage for one day. Now it's time to let us do our jobs." The guard's voice carried an authority that Melissa wouldn't have dreamed of challenging now, a far cry from her mocking attempts to provoke a response earlier. The memorial's grand hall, which Melissa had dismissed as merely ceremonial, now felt like the centerpiece of something much larger and more important. The truth behind its marble walls and solemn ceremonies was far darker and more complex than she had imagined in her ignorant attempt at social media fame. The armed intruder at the end of the corridor raised their tactical radio again. "Upload at 85%. Prepare for data dissemination." Their professional-grade body armor bore no identifying marks, but their movements betrayed extensive military training. Private Mitchell's mind raced through tactical options. The ceremonial rifle in her hands was very real, but engaging in a firefight with civilians present wasn't optimal. Through her partially functioning earpiece, she could hear the operation continuing to unravel. "Subject 2 has accessed the classified servers. Subject 1 is attempting to breach the Omega containment unit. Subject 3's device is still active. Melissa, huddled behind the marble column, watched in horror as her phone continued to light up with notifications. News networks were running with the story, some already using clips from her live stream to show how the attack had begun. The comments were brutal. She helped terrorists breach a secure facility. Lock her up. She compromised national security. Her stupid prank put everyone in danger. The veteran's combat-experienced eyes hadn't left the intruder. "That's not standard tactical gear," he whispered. "That's bleeding-edge stuff. These aren't common terrorists. They're backed by someone with serious resources." Through the smoke-filled air, they could hear Chief Torres's voice echoing from somewhere near the vault. "All units, be advised. Protocol Midnight is now in full effect. If the Omega files reach the public, the consequences will be catastrophic. Authorization granted for maximum response." The intruder began moving toward their position with practiced efficiency, checking angles and maintaining cover. Their tablet showed the upload's progress, 90% and climbing. "Once this goes public," they spoke into their radio, "everything changes. The memorial's true purpose, the hidden archives, all of it." Private Mitchell's training kicked into overdrive. She could hear more security teams converging on their position, but they wouldn't arrive in time. The intruder was too close, and the civilians were too exposed. She had to make a decision. "Listen carefully," she whispered to Melissa and the veteran. "When I move, you head for the south exit. No arguments, no questions, the security team will escort you out." Her voice carried an authority that made even the veteran nod in acknowledgement. Melissa grabbed Private Mitchell's arm, her expensive bracelets jingling softly. "Wait," she whispered, tears streaking her makeup. "I can help. This is my fault. Let me fix it somehow." The transformation from her earlier arrogance to desperate regret was stark. "You want to help?" Private Mitchell's eyes never left the approaching threat. "Then do exactly as I say. Your livestream already compromised this operation. Don't make it worse by playing hero now." The veteran placed a steadying hand on Melissa's shoulder. "She's right. The best thing we can do is get clear and let them work. This is what they train for, what that uniform really means." Through her earpiece, Private Mitchell heard Torres's voice again. "Upload at 95%. If those files go public, decades of carefully maintained secrets will be exposed. The political fallout alone could destabilize." Static cut off the rest of the transmission. The intruder was closer now, their tactical gear making them nearly invisible in the smoky shadows. Their radio crackled. "Primary team, report status on the Omega files." The response was immediate. "Almost through the final encryption. Whatever they're hiding down here, it's bigger than we imagined." Melissa's phone suddenly buzzed again, her mother calling for the 5th time. The sound, though slight, was enough to draw the intruder's attention. Their heads snapped toward the column and their tablet momentarily lowered. Private Mitchell saw her opening. "Now," she commanded, her voice carrying the full weight of her training. As Melissa and the veteran moved toward the exit, she stepped out from cover, her ceremonial rifle raised with practiced precision. The intruder reacted instantly, but Private Mitchell had the advantage of preparation. Her first shot struck the tablet, sending it skidding across the marble floor. Her second found its mark in the intruder's tactical vest, the impact forcing them back several steps. "Upload interrupted," the cry echoed through multiple radio channels. "Connection lost at 98%. The memorial's emergency lights cast harsh shadows as Private Mitchell and the intruder faced each other across the smoke-filled corridor. Two professionals, both highly trained, both dedicated to their missions. The only sound was the distant echo of combat from deeper within the building. "You have no idea what you're protecting," the intruder spoke, their voice distorted by their tactical mask. "The secrets in those archives. The public has a right to know." Private Mitchell's response was measured but firm. "The public has a right to stability, to order. Some truths are kept hidden for a reason." Her rifle remained steady, covering both the intruder and the fallen tablet. Through her earpiece, she could hear Torres coordinating the response. "Teams converging on your position. Hold target in place. prevent any attempt to recover the data. The sound of boots on marble grew closer as security forces moved to surround them. Melissa and the veteran had reached the relative safety of the security team's position, but Melissa couldn't help looking back. The guard she had spent the morning mocking now stood as an iron barrier between order and chaos, between hidden truths and public revelation. The magnitude of what she had inadvertently become part of was overwhelming. The fallen tablet's screen flickered with interrupted data streams, its cracked display still showing the progress bar frozen at 98%. Smoke continued to curl through the memorial's grand hall as Private Mitchell and the intruder maintained their standoff, each assessing the other with professional calculation. "You won't shoot," the intruder said, their tactical mask lending an mechanical quality to their voice. "Too many civilians still in the building. Too much risk of collateral damage. That's the difference between us. You're bound by rules, we're not." Through her earpiece, Private Mitchell heard the situation deteriorating further. Subject 1 has breached the Omega Vault. Critical documents are being removed. Subject 3's device is showing increased energy signatures. All teams prepare for possible scorched earth protocol. From her position with the security team, Melissa watched the scene unfold, her social media influencer's instincts warring with her growing understanding of the situation's gravity. Her phone continued to buzz with notifications, but she ignored them now, focused entirely on the guard she had so foolishly taunted earlier. The veteran's combat-experienced eyes caught movement in the shadows. "They're not alone," he whispered to the security team. "Multiple tangos using the smoke for cover. Classic infiltration pattern." Chief Torres's voice crackled through all command channels. "Be advised, Subject 2 has initiated a secondary upload from a different server. They're trying to release everything. Operation Starcross files, Project Echo documents, the Trinity protocols, the entire hidden history." Private Mitchell's rifle remained steady, but her mind raced through scenarios. The intruder was right about one thing. She was bound by rules, by duty, by the very discipline Melissa had mocked. But those rules, that discipline, had been forged through generations of service for exactly this kind of moment. "Last chance," the intruder took a step forward, their own weapon raised. "Stand down. Let the truth come out. The public deserves to know what's really buried under this memorial." From somewhere deep below, another explosion rocked the building. The veteran's eyes widened as he recognized the sound. "That wasn't just any explosion," he muttered. "That was a thermite charge. They're trying to burn their way through something big." Through the smoke, more figures began to emerge. 3, 4, then 5 additional intruders, all wearing the same advanced tactical gear. They moved with military precision, creating a circle around Private Mitchell's position. One of them retrieved the fallen tablet, its screen still showing the interrupted upload. "Upload resuming," one of the new arrivals reported. "Connection reestablished, 98.5%. Private Mitchell's earpiece crackled with urgent updates. "Subject 1 has accessed the sealed records. Subject 2 is bypassing the final firewalls. Subject 3. God help us. Subject 3 is arming the failsafe device." Melissa, watching from behind the security cordon, saw something in Private Mitchell's stance shift subtly. The guard's stoic discipline hadn't cracked, but it had transformed into something else. Something more dangerous. "You're right," Private Mitchell addressed the first intruder, her voice carrying clearly through the smoke-filled air. "I am bound by rules, by duty, by an oath to protect not just this memorial, but everything it represents and contains." Her finger remained steady on the trigger. "But you made a critical mistake in your planning." The intruder's head tilted slightly. "And what's that?" "You assumed the rules were a weakness." Private Mitchell's next movements happened faster than anyone could follow. Her ceremonial rifle fired twice, each shot finding gaps in the intruder's tactical gear with surgical precision. Simultaneously, she triggered something on her uniform's collar. The memorial's lights suddenly cut out completely, plunging the grand hall into total darkness. When emergency power kicked in 3 seconds later, the scene had transformed. 4 of the intruders were down, their tactical gear sparking from precisely placed shots. The others had scattered for cover, their formation broken. How? Melissa whispered, watching in awe. The guard she had dismissed as merely decorative moved like a highly trained operative, each action economical and devastating. The veteran nodded in appreciation. The ceremonial guard program. It's not just about standing at attention. It's advanced training disguised as tradition, hiding their best right in plain sight. Through her earpiece, Private Mitchell heard Torres coordinating the response. All teams move in. Subject 1 is retreating from the vault. Subject 2's upload is stalled at 99%. Subject 3... Static interrupted the transmission. The first intruder emerged from cover, their tactical mask damaged to reveal a face twisted with frustration. "You have no right to keep these secrets," they shouted. "The truth about what's really stored here, about what really happened in—" Private Mitchell's voice cut through their words like steel. Some truths stay buried for a reason. Some secrets are kept not to deceive, but to protect. Her rifle hadn't wavered. The public thinks they want to know everything, but there are truths that would tear the fabric of society apart. That's what we guard here, not just memories, but the peace of mind of an entire nation. Melissa felt a chill run down her spine as she finally understood. Her attempt to mock a guard, to get social media attention, had nearly exposed secrets that could fundamentally alter society itself. The weight of her actions pressed down on her like a physical force. The memorial's grand hall had transformed into something out of a military operation, with security teams moving in precise formations through the smoke-filled space. The fallen intruders were being secured by tactical units, their advanced gear being carefully removed and contained. Private Mitchell maintained her position, her ceremonial rifle still covering the remaining threats with unwavering precision. "Status report," Chief Torres's voice crackled through all channels. "Subject 1 is cornered in the lower archives. Subject 2's upload is stalled but not stopped. Subject 3... A burst of static interrupted the transmission before it continued. Subject 3's device is showing critical readings. All teams prepare for possible mass data breach. Melissa watched the scene unfold from behind the security cordon, her social media influencer's world completely shattered. Her phone had finally gone silent, its battery drained from the constant stream of notifications. The last messages she'd seen were from news networks, all wanting exclusive rights to her footage of the incident. "I never thought," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. I just wanted to make a video. I never imagined—" Her voice trailed off as she watched Private Mitchell efficiently disable another intruder who had tried to reach for the fallen tablet. The veteran placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "Nobody ever does imagine," he said gravely. "That's why places like this exist. That's why they train people like her." He nodded toward Private Mitchell. "The best security is the kind you don't recognize as security at all." Through the smoke, they could hear fragments of radio communication from the intruders. Primary objective compromised. Upload status uncertain. Initiate protocol Omega. The professional tone of their voices had given way to something closer to desperation. Private Mitchell's earpiece came alive with Torres's urgent command. "All units be advised. Subject 1 is attempting to access the chronology vault. Cannot allow breach. Repeat, cannot allow breach of the chronology vault." The first intruder, their tactical mask now completely removed, laughed bitterly. "The chronology vault," they called out. "That's what you're really protecting, isn't it? Not just documents or artifacts, but time itself. The true history that would unravel everything people think they know." Melissa's eyes widened. Time? What are they talking about? She turned to the veteran, but his expression had gone completely serious, his old eyes showing a knowledge he seemed reluctant to share. Private Mitchell's voice carried across the hall with authority. "Stand down. Whatever you think you know, whatever you think the public deserves to know, there are bigger considerations at play." Her finger remained steady on the trigger, her training evident in every controlled movement. Through her earpiece, more updates flowed. Subject 2's upload reaching critical threshold. Firewall breach imminent. Subject 3's device showing temporal energy signatures. All personnel prepare for chronological containment protocols. The remaining intruders had taken positions behind columns, their tactical gear blending with the shadows. One of them called out, "You can't keep the truth buried forever." People have a right to know about the experiments, about what really happened during the gaps in recorded history. "The gaps?" Melissa whispered to the veteran. "What gaps?" The old soldier's voice was heavy with understanding. "Think about it, girl. All those convenient blank spots in history books. All those unexplained leaps in technology. All those perfectly timed coincidences that shaped the world we know." He watched as more security teams moved into position. Some things stay buried because the truth is too dangerous to face. Private Mitchell took a step forward, her ceremonial uniform now covered in marble dust but her bearing still immaculate. "Final warning," she announced. "Your upload has failed, your team is cornered, and in about 30 seconds, Protocol Midnight goes into full effect." As if on cue, the memorial's architecture began to shift. Hidden panels in the walls slid open, revealing advanced security systems that looked decades ahead of current technology. The marble floor beneath their feet hummed with hidden machinery, and the air itself seemed to crackle with unseen energy. "My God," Melissa breathed, watching as the classical architecture of the memorial transformed into something far more advanced. All this time, all those ceremonies and traditions, they were just a cover? The veteran nodded slowly. "The best place to hide something important is where everyone can see it, but nobody really looks. Every tourist taking photos, every social media star trying to get reactions. None of them ever realized they were standing on top of one of the most sensitive installations in human history." Through the increasingly sophisticated security systems, Torres's voice rang out clearly. "Chronological containment field activated. All personnel prepare for temporal lockdown. We cannot allow the contents of the Omega files to reach the present timeline." The first intruder made one last desperate move, lunging for the fallen tablet. Private Mitchell's response was immediate and precise. Her ceremonial rifle, now clearly more than just a parade weapon, fired once. The tablet exploded in a shower of sparks, its partially completed upload dying in a burst of corrupted data. "Upload terminated," came the confirmation through all channels. "Chronological integrity maintained. Beginning containment and cleanup procedures." Melissa slumped against the wall, her designer clothes ruined, her carefully crafted social media persona in tatters. "I streaming all this," she whispered in horror. "I practically gave them a blueprint of the security protocols. Her voice broke as the full weight of her actions finally hit her. "What have I done?" The memorial's transformed interior hummed with energy as advanced security systems continued to emerge from behind classical facades. Security teams moved with practiced efficiency, securing the fallen intruders and containing their high-tech equipment. Through it all, Private Mitchell maintained her position, her ceremonial rifle still ready, but her attention now divided between multiple threats. "Subject 1 neutralized in the lower archives," Torres's voice reported through the command channel. "Subject 2 is in custody. Subject 3... There was a pause that made everyone tense. Subject 3's device has been contained, but temporal ripples have been detected. Initiating emergency protocols. Melissa watched as teams of people in specialized gear began sweeping the area with equipment that looked like nothing she'd ever seen before. Her phone, though dead, had captured everything. The transformation of the memorial, the revelation of its true purpose, the advanced technology that lay hidden beneath its classical exterior. "They'll need that," the veteran said, nodding toward her phone. "Can't have evidence of what really happens here getting out to the public." His eyes showed a deep understanding of the situation, as if he'd seen similar things during his service but had kept that knowledge buried for decades. Through the sophisticated security systems now visible throughout the hall, they could hear fragments of communication between different teams. Temporal containment holding at 80%. Chronological anomalies detected in sectors 7 through 9. Begin memory reconstruction protocols for all civilian witnesses. Private Mitchell's voice cut through the chaos with authority. "Chief Torres, the civilian livestream reached over 50,000 viewers. Standard containment procedures won't be sufficient. Her disciplined stance hadn't wavered, but there was a new tension in her voice. The first intruder, now fully secured but still defiant, laughed bitterly. You see? That's what we were trying to expose. Not just the hidden technology or the secret files, but how they maintain the illusion. How they keep the public from knowing what really guards humanity's biggest secrets. Melissa felt a chill run down her spine. Memory reconstruction? What are they talking about? She turned to the veteran, whose expression had grown even more serious. They wouldn't. Girl, the veteran said softly, why do you think no one ever questions the guard's absolute stillness? Why no one finds it strange that the same ceremonies have been performed perfectly, identically for generations? Some questions aren't asked because the answers are carefully managed. Through her earpiece, Private Mitchell received new orders from Torres. Begin final protocol. The live stream has compromised too much. We'll need to initiate a full temporal reset of the last 6 hours. His voice carried the weight of someone who had made this decision before. The memorial's advanced systems pulsed with increasing energy. Panels in the ceiling opened to reveal technology that seemed to bend both light and reality itself. The air grew thick with what felt like static electricity, making everyone's hair stand on end. No, Melissa whispered, understanding finally dawning. They're going to erase it all? Everything that happened? My stream? The attack? The revelations? Her voice cracked with the realization that her biggest viral moment would be wiped from existence. Private Mitchell turned to face her directly for the first time since the crisis began. Now you understand, she said, her voice firm but not unkind. This isn't about maintaining tradition or following protocol. This is about protecting humanity from truths it isn't ready to face. Some knowledge once gained can't be unknown. Some revelations can't be contained once they spread. The veteran nodded slowly. Why do you think they put their most advanced security personnel in plain sight? Make them stand absolutely still, maintain perfect discipline? Because everyone sees them, but no one really looks. The perfect cover isn't invisibility. It's being so visible that people stop paying attention. Through the increasingly reality-bending security systems, Torres's voice announced, Temporal reset initiating in 60 seconds. All authorized personnel activate chronological shielding. Prepare for timeline reconstruction. The first intruder made one last attempt to speak. The public deserves to know. About the time experiments, about the alternative histories, about how many times they've reset. Their voice cut off as a security team activated some kind of dampening field around them. Melissa looked at her dead phone, understanding that soon it wouldn't matter that its battery was drained. Soon, the footage wouldn't have ever existed. Her attempt to mock a guard, to gain social media fame, had led her to discover one of humanity's biggest secrets, and now that discovery would be undone. Will it? She hesitated, looking at Private Mitchell. Will it hurt? The guard's expression softened slightly. You won't feel anything. You won't remember anything. You'll go back to being exactly who you were 6 hours ago. Just another social media influencer looking for content, walking past a guard you think is just standing still for show. The veteran placed a steadying hand on Melissa's shoulder. Some burdens aren't meant to be carried, he said quietly. Some truths aren't meant to be known. That's what they really guard here. Not just secrets, but the weight of knowledge that would change everything. The memorial's advanced systems reached full power, reality itself seeming to bend and flex around them. Through it all, Private Mitchell maintained her perfect posture, her discipline unshaken. She was, Melissa realized, exactly what she had appeared to be all along. A guard protecting something vital. The fact that she was protecting it from the past, present, and future simultaneously was just another layer of a truth too big for the world to handle. The air in the memorial crackled with invisible energy as the temporal reset sequence began. Reality seemed to waver like heat waves rising from hot pavement, making the marble walls appear fluid and uncertain. The advanced security systems pulsed with an otherworldly light, casting strange shadows that moved in ways shadows shouldn't. Temporal reset commencing in 30 seconds. Torres's voice echoed through the transformed space. All personnel activate chronological shielding. Prepare for timeline reconstruction. The security teams moved with practiced efficiency, their movements suggesting they'd done this many times before. Melissa watched in fascination and horror as small devices throughout the memorial began to spin, creating intersecting fields of energy that seemed to bend both light and time itself. Her dead phone suddenly flickered to life, its screen showing impossible things, timestamps moving backward, comments unwriting themselves, her live stream beginning to unravel thread by thread. "Look," the veteran said softly, pointing to where the fallen intruders lay secured. Their advanced tactical gear was literally disappearing, fading from existence piece by piece. They're not just erasing memories, they're undoing everything that happened, making it so none of this ever existed. Through her earpiece, Private Mitchell received continuous updates. Chronological containment at 90%. Beginning systematic erasure of digital footprints. Timeline calculations complete, preparing for full reset. Temporal anchors engaged and holding. The first intruder, still conscious but rapidly fading from reality, made one final attempt to speak. "You can't keep doing this forever," they called out, their voice already sounding distant and echo-like. "Every reset weakens the fabric of time itself. Sooner or later, the truth will—" Their voice cut off as another wave of temporal energy washed through the hall. Melissa felt a strange tingling sensation as the reset field grew stronger. "I don't understand," she said, watching her own hands seeming to become less substantial. "If you're erasing everything that happened, why tell us the truth now? Why explain any of it?" Private Mitchell's response was measured, her disciplined stance unchanged even as reality warped around her. "Because in these last moments, while you still remember, you need to understand why this is necessary, why some secrets must be kept, why some knowledge is too dangerous to spread." The veteran nodded, his old eyes showing a deep understanding. "Think about it," he said. "How many times has history seemed to take an impossible turn? How many coincidences have shaped our world? How many disasters have been narrowly avoided?" He gestured to the advanced technology now visible throughout the memorial. None of it was coincidence. Through the increasingly unstable reality, Torres's voice announced, 15 seconds to full reset. All civilian memories will be reconstructed. Standard timeline will be restored. The air itself seemed to thicken, making it difficult to move or even think clearly. Melissa watched as her expensive clothes began to reset themselves, tears in her designer blazer repairing, dust vanishing from her outfit. "How many times?" she asked, her voice trembling. "How many times have you had to do this?" Private Mitchell's expression remained professional, but there was a hint of something deeper in her eyes. "More times than any record shows. That's the point. There are no records, no memories, no evidence. Just guards standing watch, protecting humanity from truths it isn't ready to face." The veteran's voice grew distant as the temporal field intensified. "Why do you think they choose the best for this duty? Why train them to such perfection? Standing guard isn't just about watching for physical threats. It's about guarding the very fabric of reality itself." The memorial's advanced systems reached their peak, reality bending almost to the breaking point. Through the chaos, they could hear fragments of communication. Timeline integrity at critical levels. Preparing for memory reconstruction. Chronological anchors holding steady. Begin final sequence. Melissa felt her consciousness starting to fade, memories of the past few hours becoming increasingly unclear. "Will any part of me remember?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Will some small part know the truth?" Private Mitchell's response was both professional and somehow gentle. "Number. And that's a mercy. You'll go back to being exactly who you were, someone who sees a guard standing still and thinks it's just ceremony. Someone who doesn't carry the weight of knowing what we really protect." The veteran's form was now almost transparent, his voice echoing strangely. "The best secrets," he said, "are the ones hidden in plain sight, the ones so obvious that nobody thinks to question them. That's what makes this place perfect. Everyone sees it, but nobody really looks. The temporal reset reached its final stage, reality itself seeming to hold its breath. Through the last moments of clarity, Melissa watched as Private Mitchell maintained her perfect posture, understanding finally what that discipline truly meant. The guard wasn't just standing still, she was anchoring a point in time, maintaining the stability of a reality that threatened to unravel with every secret revealed. 10 seconds to reset, Torres's voice announced, sounding both present and impossibly distant. 9, 8. The last thing Melissa saw before her consciousness began to fade was Private Mitchell, standing exactly as she had been when this all started. But now Melissa understood. That stillness wasn't an act, wasn't ceremony, wasn't protocol. It was necessity. It was protection. It was guard duty taken to its ultimate extreme. 3, 2, 1. Reality flexed, bent, and began to rewrite itself, erasing not just memories but existence itself. The truth about the memorial, about the guards, about what they really protected, all of it began to fade like a dream upon waking. The world prepared to reset to a simpler time, when some questions remained unasked, and some truths remained safely buried beneath layers of ceremony and tradition. The temporal reset wave swept through the memorial like an invisible tide, erasing and rewriting reality as it moved. The advanced security systems began to retract, disappearing behind classical facades that reconstructed themselves perfectly. Marble dust reversed its fall, cracks in pillars sealed themselves, and the signs of combat simply ceased to exist. Timeline restoration at 50%. Torres's voice echoed through the shifting reality. All personnel maintain chronological shielding. Prepare for memory reconstruction phase. The security teams moved with practiced precision, their movements becoming increasingly ghost-like as the reset progressed. Melissa felt herself becoming less substantial with each passing second, her memories of the past few hours growing foggy and distant. Her phone, which had captured everything, began to reset itself, the live stream unraveling, comments disappearing, notifications fading away like they had never existed. "It's beautiful in a way," the veteran observed, his form now almost transparent. "How many times has the world been saved without anyone knowing? How many disasters prevented, how many terrible truths buried, all by guards everyone thinks are just standing still?" Through the dissolving chaos, Private Mitchell maintained her position, her discipline unwavering even as reality rewrote itself around her. Through her earpiece, she heard the continuing progress. Digital footprint elimination complete. Civilian memory patterns mapped for reconstruction. Temporal anomalies being neutralized. Timeline integrity stabilizing. The intruders had already faded from existence, their advanced equipment and tactical gear completely erased. Only their leader remained partially visible, their form growing more transparent by the second. "You can't keep the truth buried forever," they called out, their voice sounding like it came from the bottom of a deep well. "Sooner or later, the weight of all these resets will—" Their words cut off as another wave of temporal energy pulsed through the space. The memorial's marble walls rippled like water, then solidified again, now showing no signs of the battle that had taken place. The hidden panels containing advanced technology sealed themselves seamlessly, leaving no trace of their existence. Melissa watched in fascination as her own actions began to unmake themselves. The confetti she had planned to throw reversed its journey back into her bag. Her phone's battery restored itself. Even her makeup and hair returned to their perfect morning state. "How do you bear it?" she asked Private Mitchell, her voice already sounding distant to her own ears. "Standing guard not just over a place but over reality itself? Knowing what you know but never being able to show it?" Private Mitchell's response carried the weight of countless similar moments, all now erased from history. "That's what the training is really for," she said. "Not just standing still, but bearing the weight of necessary secrets. The discipline isn't about ceremony. It's about protecting something far more important than ourselves." The veteran's voice came from somewhere that seemed both near and impossibly far away. Every civilization has its guardians, he said. Those who stand between the people and the truths they're not ready to face. We just never realized how literal that guard duty could be. Through the shifting reality, Torres's voice announced the final stages. Memory reconstruction protocols initiated. Timeline convergence at 75%. Preparing for final chronological alignment. Standard reality parameters being restored. Melissa felt her consciousness beginning to split, like a river dividing around a rock. One part of her, the part that knew the truth, was fading, while another version, one who had never discovered the memorial's secrets, was becoming more solid. "Will any of this matter?" she asked, her words barely more than a thought now. "If none of it happened, if no one remembers, what's the point of understanding it at all?" Private Mitchell's response carried both authority and compassion. Understanding, even for a moment, changes something in you. Even if you won't remember consciously, some part of you will know to show more respect next time, to think twice before mocking what you don't understand. The veteran, now barely visible, smiled sadly. "That's why they let us know in these last moments. Not because we'll remember, but because the lesson matters, even if the memory doesn't." The memorial's grand hall was almost completely restored now, all signs of the morning's events erased. Tourists were beginning to reappear, their positions and movements rewinding to their proper places in the timeline. Through it all, Private Mitchell stood at her post, exactly as she had been when it all started. "Timeline restoration at 90%, Torres's voice announced. "Preparing for final memory integration. Standard reality will resume in 10 seconds. Melissa felt the last of her awareness of the truth beginning to fade. She looked at Private Mitchell one final time, seeing not just a guard in a ceremonial uniform, but a guardian of reality itself. "Thank you," she whispered, though she wasn't sure if she actually spoke the words or just thought them. 9, 8, 7. The memorial's classical beauty was fully restored, all evidence of its true nature hidden once again behind perfect marble walls and solemn ceremony. 6, 5, 4. Melissa felt her last memories of the truth slipping away like water through her fingers. The weight of understanding began to lift, replaced by the simpler reality of a normal morning at a normal memorial. 3, 2, 1. Reality snapped back into its standard configuration. The temporal reset was complete. The morning sun streamed through the stained glass windows, casting familiar patterns on the marble floor. And at her post, Private Mitchell stood motionless, guarding secrets that, for now at least, remained safely hidden behind her unwavering discipline. The morning sun painted the memorial's marble floors with familiar patterns as tourists moved through the grand hall, taking photos and speaking in respectful whispers. Private Mitchell stood at her post, exactly as she had for countless mornings before, her ceremonial rifle held with perfect precision, her posture unwavering. Melissa Blackwood walked through the memorial's entrance, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor, her phone ready to capture content for her followers. But something felt different, a strange sensation she couldn't quite place, like déjà vu but deeper, more significant. "Okay, beautiful people," she began her usual streaming introduction, but the words felt hollow somehow. She looked at Private Mitchell, standing motionless at her post, and felt an unexpected wave of respect. She couldn't explain why, but her usual desire to create provocative content seemed to fade. In the command center below, Chief Torres watched the monitors with practiced attention. "Timeline restoration complete," he noted in the official log. "All traces of the incident erased, civilian memories reconstructed, standard reality parameters maintained." He paused, then added, "Subject shows signs of residual temporal awareness. Monitoring recommended." Through her earpiece, Private Mitchell heard the confirmation of their success. The memorial's hidden systems had done their work perfectly. Reality had been restored, secrets had been preserved, and the weight of dangerous knowledge had been lifted from those not meant to bear it. The veteran who had witnessed everything, and now remembered nothing, sat on a bench nearby, reading a newspaper. His eyes occasionally drifted to the guard, and something in his military-trained mind recognized a familiar discipline, though he couldn't have explained why it felt so significant. Melissa found herself walking closer to the guard, her phone lowered now, forgotten at her side. The usual urge to create controversial content, to push boundaries for views and likes, felt strangely distant. Instead, she found herself studying Private Mitchell's stance, noting not the stiffness she would have usually mocked, but the purpose behind it. "Excuse me," she said softly, surprising herself. "I just wanted to say thank you for your service." The words came unbidden, driven by a feeling she didn't understand but couldn't ignore. Private Mitchell maintained her position, but through her earpiece, Torres's voice noted, "Interesting." Subject showing stronger temporal echo than usual. Possible residual consciousness bleeding through the reset. Other tourists moved through the space, taking photos and reading plaques about the memorial's official history. None of them noticed the subtle hum of hidden machinery behind the walls, or the advanced systems monitoring every corner of the building. The memorial's secrets remained perfectly hidden behind its ceremonial facade. Melissa stood there longer than she had planned, her usual social media performance forgotten. Something about this place, about this guard, demanded a respect she hadn't known she was capable of feeling. Her followers were commenting on her unusual silence, but for once, their opinions didn't seem to matter. "Some things," she found herself saying quietly, though she didn't know why, "are more important than getting attention." The words felt right, even though she couldn't explain where they came from. The veteran looked up from his newspaper, a flicker of recognition crossing his face as he watched Melissa's unexpected show of respect. Something about this scene felt significant, like he was witnessing the echo of a lesson learned and unlearned. Through the memorial's hidden systems, Torres monitored the situation closely. Temporal echo fading, he noted in the log. Subject retaining core behavioral modification without conscious memory. Operation successful on all parameters. Private Mitchell stood unwavering, but her trained senses noted every detail. Melissa's changed behavior, the veteran's thoughtful observation, the subtle signs of the memorial's true nature hidden in plain sight. This was what they really guarded, not just secrets, but the very fabric of reality that those secrets held together. Other visitors began to notice Melissa's respectful behavior, her unusual silence. Instead of pushing boundaries or seeking attention, she stood in quiet contemplation. Without realizing why, she had become an example of the very respect she would have usually mocked. "Sometimes," the veteran said to no one in particular, "the best way to honor something is simply to let it be what it is." He couldn't have explained why he said it, but the words felt heavy with meaning. Melissa finally turned away from the guard, her phone still unused in her hand. Her followers were asking for content, demanding their usual entertainment, but something had changed. Walking toward the memorial's exit, she found herself deleting the streaming app from her phone. Private Mitchell maintained her post as the morning continued, guarding not just a memorial, but the countless untold stories, the necessary secrets, and the very timeline that kept the world stable. Her discipline wasn't just ceremony, it was the foundation upon which reality itself sometimes depended. The sun continued its journey across the sky, casting different shadows through the stained glass windows, but never revealing the true nature of what lay behind them. The memorial had returned to its normal state, its deeper purpose hidden once again behind ceremony and tradition. And if sometimes visitors felt a strange urge to show unexpected respect, to maintain unusual silence, to think twice before mocking what they didn't understand, well, that was just part of the memorial's solemn atmosphere. Or so they would believe, never knowing how close they had come to learning truths that could unravel everything they thought they knew. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.